Right, let's start our meeting. Time is 6 p.m. for the regular meeting of the Board of Library Trustees of July 12th, 2022. Ginger, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Trustee Cortez,
Here.
Trustee Lentini, Trustee Vadot,
Here.
Chair Duque,
Here.
and I was going to include Trustee Andal later in the meeting after he's been introduced. Is that okay?
Well, he's on the roll, so you should call him now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Trustee
But
Andal.
for the minutes, maybe not so much, but
Okay.
it's okay.
Here.
And is that how you pronounce your last name?
Ando is the technically.
Ando? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ando.
Sure.
Okay.
Great, and Ginger, can you explain how the public can participate in this evening's agenda?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Viewers are welcome to provide public comment online through Zoom or by telephone at 669-900-9128. And the meeting ID is 952-5545-6309#. If you are watching the meeting on Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please select the raise hand feature either on the bottom of your screen or through the participants icon. If you are participating by telephone and wish to provide public comment, please press *9 when the chair opens the public comment period. When it is your turn to speak, you will be notified that the host is inviting you to participate. You will need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments. For closed captioning, please click the live transcript button, then click show subtitle.
Thank you. And are there any amendments to this evening's agenda? So that means no. Shall we move to the first item, approve regular meeting minutes of June 14, 2022? Any questions from trustees to staff? Public comment?
No public comments.
So if there are no comments, then I request a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from last meeting.
I guess I should have asked this question. So since I wasn't present at the last meeting, I guess I probably shouldn't second any motions or vote on approving it, correct?
You can still vote.
Oh, okay.
I will motion to approve the minutes.
Then I'll second.
Great, thank you, Ginger. Can you roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Cortez.
Aye.
Trustee Lentini. Trustee Vadot.
Aye.
Chair Duque.
Aye. Great. So second item is public comment from the audience regarding items not listed on the agenda.
No public comments.
Great. Okay. Third item, introductions, awards, recognitions, presentations. Introduction of new board member, Larry Ando.
Do you want me to say something here, or just what is the process here?
In the past, board members have each offered a brief introduction of themselves, and so kind of like
That'd be fine.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think you all have had a chance to see my application. I'll just kind of highlight some of the points there. My wife and I have lived here in Centerville for about 25 years. We've raised 2 kids. We're out in Peacock Gap. The kids went through Davidson, all the way through Davidson junior high, and then went off to separate high schools after that. They're now off on their own. They're both techies, computer engineers. And we have really used the library so much over those years with raising them and also ourselves. I always have one or at least one book probably checked out from the library. So I was really interested in being on the board of the library, and I'm a big proponent of literacy. Now that I'm retired, I've been retired for about 5 years from corporate finance, and I tutor at San Pedro School during the school year. Literacy, second and third graders in particular, because it is so important, I think, to bring them up to speed by third grade. I enjoy books a lot. I'm part of a men's book club here in San Rafael. For those of you who remember Doug Van Gessel on this board, it's the same club that Doug belongs to. So that's kind of my basic spiel. I'm happy to answer questions or talk about any other areas that you'd like to know about me or my interest in the board.
Thanks, Larry. Like in the past, then all the members also introduce themselves and tell them about yourselves, if that's what y'all want to do.
Sure, I can start. Larry, very nice to meet you, and so great everything that you do. Like you, I live in Peacock Gap, so we must be neighbors. And I joined, I think, about 2 years ago, the board as a member, and now I'm chair. And I share the passion for books as an incredible way to raise 2 children. They're still here. In fact, one of them has COVID, and he's isolating, but we luckily had a huge bag of books that we had got from the library, so he hasn't complained a bit. And he started to use the teen section of the library, even though he's only 11, but he's just loving it. And we're so grateful for our local library. So that's one of the main reasons I joined. And it's just such a great group in the library, and as well as this board. So welcome.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, Larry. I'm Alex Wadat. Good to meet you. I've been on the board now, I think less than a year still, but I joined last year at some point. Time sort of bleeds together during the pandemic, so I'm not quite sure the month. But I live in Terra Linda, and I've been in San Rafael for about 5 years now with my wife and young daughter, who's 3 years old, and she's starting to get into going to the library and checking out books. The items that get checked out get increased by the week, but so hopefully there's not too many empty shelves because of my daughter, but she's enjoying it. And my reason for joining the board was, the library has been always an integral part of my life growing up from each stage of my life, and I wanted to join to give back. So pleasure to have you. And I guess my question for you is, what book do you have checked out right now?
Let's see. Right now, I think I have the book about the Titanic. I'm trying to think of the exact title, but it's by the author of Heat in the White City, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but it's about the Titanic, and it's an amazing book so far. It's actually the men's book club read for this month, so I'm trying to get ahead of myself before we meet.
Hi, this is Jamie Cortez. Apologies, but I'm not in the best place to be off video. I have been with the library board, I don't know, 5 years, 6, I don't know. It's been a long time, huh, Henry? Previously the chair, and I joined the library because it was the first place that I found community when I moved here from Los Angeles 10 years ago, and love it. And we go there frequently. And I do nonprofit management work in my spare time, which is all day long. But we're really excited to have you here. So thanks for joining, and say hi to Doug for us.
Awesome. One other board member, Cheryl Lentini, is not here today. Cheryl's an architect. You'll get to meet her. She's also on the Library Foundation. I found the book, No One Goes Alone, right?
No, I think it's,
It's not that one? Oh, okay.
um, I'll find it.
It's okay. I just can't
No,
resist
we're
the
all
book
intrigued.
challenge.
Keep going, keep going. I apologize.
It's all good. So if the introduction of new board member Larry Ondo is concluded, we'll move to the next thing.
Yes, and
Which-
there's no public comments.
Okay, cool. Which is presentation by staff member Daniel
Dan.
Cottrell on school library card outreach. Take it away, Dan.
Everybody, let me see about sharing my screen here. You can all hear me, all right, correct? Okay. All right. So. So my name's Dan Cottrell. I'm the supervising librarian working specifically in overseeing circulation and outreach. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the school library card project that I oversaw shortly after I started in May, which is really the middle of the Venn diagram of circulation and outreach. It's creating library cards for 2 different school districts. So without further ado, some background. The Santa Fe Public Library has had a school library card program since 2017. Our current and active memoranda of understanding for sharing student data are with 2 different school districts. So the Santa Fe City Schools, which is effective 2021, and the Miller Creek School District, which is effective 2019. They're for different lengths of time. So they ended up both, on paper, they expire in September of this year, though they started at different times. And we'll look to renew them, but more on that later. More recently, of course, COVID happened in 2020, and the shift to COVID was a little bumpy. So there were we shifted to digital cards in 2020 because we couldn't get physical cards out. There was also a pause, even more recently, in data sharing with the schools, and there were also staff changes. Many organizations experienced this. We are not unique in that. There's a lot of turnover, people moving. So a little overview of the timeline here. In April and May of this year, we shared data from I used to live in Santa Rosa. So whenever I see SR, I say Santa Rosa. Santa Fe City Schools and Miller Creek School District. They gave us information relating to the newest students since the last batch of information we got from them. And that kind of information is stuff like name, birth date, school, campus, classroom, teacher, all that kind of stuff. Then in mid-May, the library sent that data to MarinNet, which oversees the kind of technical aspect of our consortium. And they created the accounts using that data for those new students. And one thing that they did is they evaluated the data mainly to exclude duplicates. So if they saw data where same first name and last name and birth date were present, they were certain that's a duplicate. So they didn't want to create duplicate accounts. So they vetted the data that way. And in late May, we got the data back from them, used that to print out labels, and then put those labels on library cards, and then in early June, distribute cards. So that's kind of the basic overview. There were, however, hurdles. The pause I mentioned earlier in the pandemic meant that the pause in sharing data meant that the batch of data that came to us was bigger than usual. So for Miller Creek School District, we had a total of 1,766 students in the data they sent us. The pause was really present with Miller Creek specifically, so that's why it's so large as compared to San Rafael City Schools, which had just 307 students in the data. More accounts also meant a longer processing time with MarinNet, because of course they had to evaluate more data to compare to what's already in the system. So a total of 34% of the Miller Creek data was duplicates. And really that's at minimum, because there's bound to be some data that doesn't match up 100%, but is, say, someone misspelled a last name, a hyphen was missing, and someone with two last names in one set of data. So the actual number is probably higher, but they're able to exclude 34% of that, which came out to 600 students. For San Rafael City Schools, it was a lower number, it's 23%. And more accounts equals more cards, of course. It turned out there's more cards than we had than could be used for a somewhat technical reason. The technical reason is that MarinNet requires unopened boxes to guarantee clean data. Each box has a certain run of 500 cards, and they need to know that that complete run is there and no cards, none of those numbers are being used by an account. So we had only one of those unopened boxes. We had another box that was opened, and so the data was not clean and they could not use that. There were accounts present in that range of numbers of that second box. So with the school year fast approaching, we had to come up with a very quick solution to that. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So we started jumping those hurdles. As mentioned before, early in the pandemic, the school library card program shifted to purely digital cards. And we already have eCards. Library accounts are themselves digital, of course. The cards are just the number that references that digital thing. So with that in mind, we took an already existing process, which was the label making process, that we would put on physical cards anyway, using what's called mail merge in Word. Some of you may have used it before to send letters. It requires a little bit of basic coding to get done. You import an Excel document and it will run through that data and print it out for you. So we adapted that whole technique, as you'll see on the next slide. And then we ended up cutting them up. So there was a mix of some normal physical plastic cards, and then most of the rest of the cards were paper cards. All 1,300 or so cards that we made were sorted by district, site, classroom, student name, and distributed on time before June 9th, which was the end of the school year. Perla helped me sort it, which was quite the task. and Henry helped deliver as well. So as I was mentioning, in mail merge on the left side of the screen, that's kind of what it looks like. So in the bottom left, you can see the code in Word before printing. And that's what it would have looked like even with a physical plastic card. It would have looked just like that. So really all we did was make it a double-sided print with our logo on the other side to make a card. And you can see on the right side, freshly cut cards. There was about 1,000 of those that we cut by hand using that paper cutter. So in review of our little impromptu innovation, I think it's valuable to look at the pros and cons about it. The pros are that it's inexpensive because we didn't have to pay anything. We already had those supplies on hand. We had the paper, we had the cutting board, we had Word on our computers. It's also biodegradable. The paper will go away, whereas plastic won't, so that's an advantage. The cons are that it's time and labor intensive to the extreme. It took quite a bit of time to do this, and my hands were not thanking me afterwards. And organizing them especially was a total pain because they print in order, but once you cut them up, they're out of order. And there's a lot of room for error. So to do it correctly, it took extra time. And looking forward, you know, we were discussing some possibilities of adapting this innovation. And so there's one thing that we've discussed a little bit is finding a service that can maybe automatically and accurately cut the cards, but there's still the organization issue afterwards. So that's kind of the retrospective on that. But looking forward to what's next, as I mentioned before, we'll need to renew the MOUs with San Rafael City Schools and Miller Creek School District, because as I mentioned, they do expire in September. And I've also documented this process. So I've created an outreach contact sheet so that we know who we're talking to earlier on next time around. And I've also created a workflow that's more detailed than what I showed you here for creating these accounts. And we're also looking at getting a new order of 10,000 library cards so we don't run out. And they will have the new city logo. As you can see, this is a draft mock-up of the new library card. It will have very basic bilingual words, so library and biblioteca on the recto and then on the verso together in juntos. And all three branches are listed on this, which currently they're not on our plastic library cards. So that is my quick little run through of this process. Were there any questions or comments?
Question from me. Well, first of all, comment. I commend you for your thinking outside the box and finding a solution when there was a problem. So that's fantastic, and an eco-friendly solution, or at least more eco-friendly than plastic, right? That was exactly what I thought. I thought, oh, paper, you know, more biodegradable. And then it got me thinking, so in my spare time, as Jamie would say, my daytime job is I'm a management consultant. I work with a lot of companies and I do a lot of research on the future of work and how new technologies are changing the way we work. And so I speak with some companies that are already out there, even using human microchipping to access, you know, buildings and things like that. So that's kind of like the extreme of where some companies are heading. But a lot of, you know, a lot of what we hear is contactless and digital, you know, ways to access multiple services. So, you know, Apple Pay is one of them where you don't even have to bring a credit card with you. You can access payment. So I was wondering if alongside, because I mean, my kids still have their card with the label from the very first time they received their card when they were, I think, in first grade, and now they're in sixth grade, and it's still really cute to see their, teachers from first grade. I think, there's nothing like something that you can touch and feel, especially for kids. But yeah, I wonder how you might be thinking also of moving to something like a digital barcode or something like that, where people show up at the library and they could just show their barcode code on their phone or something like that. Completely blue sky thinking, and don't want to put you on the spot with something like
No,
this.
not at all. And I think, and Henry, you can chime in here if I'm incorrect. Our app may have, I haven't taken a look at it.
Yes, it totally does. It's one of the best features of the app. You can stop your screen sharing also.
Okay.
You can show your library barcode on the app and scan it at the self-check. It's one of the salient reasons to get the app.
I knew
But
that,
yeah.
Wow,
Henry.
this
I
is-
was
Yeah.
just testing.
Oh, okay.
No,
cool.
this is way new. This is news to me. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can show you right here. There's like a nice little icon in the front screen of the app that shows a library card, because you used to have to hunt for it to be like, where's my library card, up in the corner. And then you kind of hit that and it shows your card and it kind of turns sideways.
Love it.
Everyone in the world, that's my library number. And so it works on the scanner. It didn't work on the scanner back in the day, but now it does. But shout out to multiple ways of getting the same thing done.
Yep.
Mhm.
And one thing I've noticed patrons doing is taking pictures of their physical card to get the barcode on the screen, which is not 100% reliable, but it has worked on occasion. So, but yeah,
I
that's
did
what-
not think of that, but I will certainly download the app. But yeah, that could be, I mean, obviously school children, which is the focus of your presentation, hopefully don't have iPhones or smartphones of any kind. But yeah, I think it would be great. I know I've been guilty of showing up at the library and not bringing any family cards with me. So I'll use the app as well. And that could be another avenue, right? So kids go to the library with their parents. Could their parents have that paper-free, plastic-free way to access books? So that no one has to be cutting lots of paper.
Me in particular.
Any other comments or questions?
Nope, that was gonna be my only comment. It's the same thing, Adriana. So I'm done.
I know you're always tuned in with the digitalization, right, Alex?
Even though I'm a lawyer and at the bottom of the tech curve, yes.
Great. Any other questions, comments, public comments, Jinder?
No public comment.
Okay, so shall we move to the next item? Library receives grant from the Cushing Family Fund.
Yes, thanks so much, Dan. That
Thank
was a
you, Dan.
great job. I like all the steps, totally awesome. Dan it doesn't have to stay for the rest of the meeting unless he wants to, totally can. So I have the next presentation. And yes, we did receive $38,600 and something from a fund I didn't know existed. And I will share my screen momentarily. Just a sec here. I have a brief slideshow. Yes. Can everyone see that? Okay. So it's kind of an interesting story, but I just received a call like in April to apply for this grant. The Cushing Family Fund is for giving money to libraries in Marin County. And it's administered by the Pittsburgh Foundation, which is a slightly different spelling of the same city in Pennsylvania. So it's actually, I think, in Pennsylvania. And so I applied for the grant online, and they asked you to come up with something you wanted to spend it on. It was very amorphous. I decided to spend it on stuff because it was a relatively small amount of money, and it wasn't really, 38,000 for operations could be, impactful, but I thought we could use some additional equipment to support digital and technology literacy. We did receive the grant and were notified in June. I'm still not sure if it was I'm pretty sure it was not a competitive process. I don't think anyone else applied for it, and we were sort of selected to receive the grant, but I don't know. And so it added up to 3 new 3D printers, which the 3D printing program has been very popular. The machines have aged over the last 2 to 3 years. And we could certainly use additional printers and supplies. 4 new Oculus headsets for our virtual reality program. These were provided by XR Marin, which is a partner that works with the Marin County Free Library. They exhibit nationally, and they're kind of a big deal. XR Marin provided us with these 3 new wireless state-of-the-art headsets with all the apps loaded and a sanitation station. So they didn't just provide us to them like out of the box. They actually are providing them fully configured for us to kind of work with the public. And XR Marin, if you remember, FYI, they were one of the original partners at the mall, provided virtual reality equipment there for us for free, provided the virtual sandbox, which was amazing. So they're kind of a great partner organization at South Novato at Hamilton Field, right near the library there. They have a building, and they do all kinds of things with virtual reality. Catherine and I saw them at the California Library Association conference, and they have a virtual reality enabled book, which when you scan the book with the correct equipment, it kind of comes to life in a kind of disturbing way in some ways, but I could see people being into it. And so we're excited about providing that. We got 8 more public computers to be distributed around our 3 locations. But I think the most impactful piece of this grant, and about half of the grant money is going to additional scanners and equipment for the memory lab, which, if you recall, some of you that have heard about this, it's seriously popular. It's a scanner and a workstation at the downtown library and additional equipment that we teach people to convert their analog memories, photos, documents to digital formats. And when we released it, we quickly had a 6-month waiting list. So an additional couple of scanners and workstations is going to allow more people to experience the memory lab and use it. Particularly with regards to concerns about wildfire. We had several customers that really wanted to scan their stuff in case of disaster. The memory lab is named in memory of Randy Coleman, who was a finance director and married to the current Friends board chair. And they initially gave us a grant, a donation of about 5,000, 10,000, 5,000, somewhere in there to start the memory lab. So we're really excited to be able to let more people, use the memory lab, given that we have this incredibly long waiting list. And so not only photos, film and slides, cassette tapes, etc. And then if that weren't exciting enough, we're also going to create an online repository for local history items and other community collections through a nonprofit called Biblio Labs. It's part of Lyrasis, which is the same company we're working with for the Palace Project, which is a free ebook collection provided by the State Library. So we're able to license 2 years of that software. It's cloud-based. but allow us to highlight our Louise Boyd collection, for example, local historical photos, things that the library puts together, but also we will let community members, particularly people that use the memory lab, if they want to make their collections public if they would like, and or put it out to the public to solicit input. It's a very complex workflow. It's completely curated. People won't be able to just put up whatever they want. We have to look at it. It's not a quality assurance built in, but we're excited to have an online digital archive because it's usually a thing that people can get excited about in terms of showcasing different aspects of community creation. During COVID, a number of libraries used it for COVID stories. It can be used to show local artists, poetry, documents, to document any aspect of the community. I should have a couple of links to show you, but I didn't add them to my slideshow. But we're really excited by that suite of new technology and technology literacy. We call it technology literacy because with virtual reality and 3D printing, we're actually teaching new literacies to people in terms of, taking advantage of the virtual reality technology and learning the 3D printing technology and then on top of that, just having more public computers to provide people access to the internet, which they may not have at home, will, I think, increase our ability to serve the public. And that concludes my presentation for today.
Thank you, Henry. Any comments or questions? I think Jamie and then Lara.
Yeah. So Henry, 2 questions. So one is, what are the requirements of the grant? Do you have reporting requirements, other things? And the second question was, is it a one-time? Or are you able to reapply? Just curious how that would happen.
So the only requirement is they want us to, when we, to acknowledge that where the money came from. There are almost very little reporting requirements. They don't require receipts. They don't require a lot. It's pretty open-ended, and it appears to be a one-time thing. There was no mention of a continuous cycle. So though I should specifically ask about that. But they provided specific language on how the gifts should be recognized.
It's awesome. I think it's great. Yeah, and I think it's worth saying, if it's not a 1-year cycle, can you come back in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. So
I had this little thought balloon that was like, maybe this is every year. That could be a thing. So I should find out. Yes, great. Thank you for mentioning that.
Otherwise, sounds exciting.
Thank you.
That's great. Larry, you had a question?
Yes, Henry. It sounds like the computers and the scanners are additional pieces of equipment that we probably already have, and maybe with even the Oculus and the 3D. But with the Oculus and the 3D, is there any kind of training that's required, and do we have the funds to get staff up to speed on the new technology? Because what I always find is when I get a new piece of technology, it takes a while to figure out all of its uses.
Yes, good point. So the same group of staff are kind of involved with both pieces. As far with the virtual reality, XR Marin provides the training for free. Basically, they're a nonprofit and they're happy to do that. Though our staff members are sort of always learning and they're kind of up to speed on it. The same staff members like are behind our video game collection and kind of the video gaming thing and the virtual reality thing kind of overlap in a huge way. With the 3D printing, we've developed a cohort of several staff that kind of know the product, though. I think the finer points of using Tinkercad, which is like an AutoCAD offshoot to actually create, we could always use additional training. It tends to be sort of DIY-ish. Most of our use from the public is kind of showing them where to find files and kind of how to actually just operate the machine. So, and because we're sort of focusing on one specific brand of printer, Lulzbot, though there are many and many different technologies. The specific one we've been using has a movable bed and a movable print head, and they kind of work together with, you know, mostly PLA or ABS, though we've been looking at some wood fill and stuff. There's other ones with like a vat of liquid that gets solidified by a laser or something like that. But we haven't, you know, the staff who are behind it are kind of like constantly learning, but I think that they do have frontiers. What we've been thinking about is putting it all together, maybe with a laser cutter, which could also be to form what that, you know, there's a maker space kind of thing happening, which I think, you know, we I think are able to train people to a certain extent, but we could definitely explore, you know, more formalized training. But that's a good point.
Thank you.
Alex,
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Alex?
Alex.
I was just gonna say, you know, given that this grant seemed to come from, you know, not like a, you know, local family or something, it came from like, seemed like a nationwide reach. I was wondering if, you know, I don't know how many grants we really typically search for. I don't know if there's any merit. I know the library staff's always overworked, but I don't know if there's any merit to maybe carving out some time to, you know, search for more of these grants, because it seems like a great, you know, one-stop shop for a cash injection to, you know, basically doubled our capacity on certain things.
Yeah, I suspect the Cushing family is local, but I've never heard of them. But yeah, it's administered by this nationwide fund administrator. It's raining grants right now from the state library, copycat grants, which is good. We applied for grants for infrastructure up to 10 million per location. So it's just bandwidth to apply for grants and which ones we're going to apply from. Like the state library's pumping grants at us nonstop, especially with ARPA and infrastructure money. It's just like what grant, what do we want to do lunch at the library? So finding the ones that fit our needs are kind of but I think we're doing a fair job. And the state library also, for example, we get a grant for the zip book program. So we applied for that and we've been doing it, and it's like 13,000, 14,000 a year. But the ones that the state library also just pays for stuff. So like the Palace project, and they pay for a bunch of databases. So we're definitely getting a fair amount of that. But I think, you know, just getting like, you know, getting above the sort of treading water to where we can kind of more strategically think which grants do we want to go for. I think specifically the copycat grants are really good because you don't really have to think so much. Someone else wrote a grant and got money, so you can just say, I want to do that. Yes, also. And then, but like lunch at the library, we've looked at, and there's some like food handling certification, and you know, but yes, I take the point, and I think, you know, we're sort of midway between, you know, getting enough grants and you know, being able to kind of think of like, you know, what could really kind of move the needle more. So yeah. Yeah, it's actually kind of a good time for grants.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand. Obviously, library staff, you guys are doing so much every day, but it just seemed like such a
I mean,
awesome opportunity.
Everyone, cross your fingers. We could be getting millions of dollars for the pickleweed location for infrastructure. It's still unknown when they're going to decide. It's still unknown. Like just, but it could happen.
That'd be great. Well, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Really great. I have one final question. How do you decide on what to invest those funds in? Did it come as part of the grant, or was it kind of like top of the list of next things to invest on?
Yeah, I mean, we before COVID, we reduced our public computing a lot, so bringing that back. Memory Lab was oversubscribed, so fixed that somewhat. The virtual reality needed a re-up, and 3D printers were aging, so it was easy to kind of, and I was expecting more reporting requirements. So reporting on stuff is like less intimidating to me than trying to hire someone to do X, or, you know, it just seemed like more doable in terms of, and making a convincing story, not knowing that it was a competitive grant. So I just made it up because there was no, and this seemed like these are the things staff are doing and that are kind of making the public respond: the memory lab, the 3D printing, virtual reality, and public computing. And from sort of a digital divide perspective, those things really kind of capture people's imagination. People come into the lobby every day and see the 3D printer and they're like, check it out, you know? So yeah, I just kind of, you know, intuitively thought that would be good.
It worked. Great. Well, thank you, Henry. Right, let's move on to our next item. Board meeting schedule, August and December.
Oh, and there were no public comments for the previous agenda item.
Thank you, Jinder.
So I was thinking Catherine could talk about this. Is that cool? No, I mean, I can talk. What?
No, I mean, I can talk about it. I
Yeah.
think we,
You got
so
it.
I think, yeah, Henry and I were talking about kind of the upcoming schedule of meetings, and I asked whether this group had ever discussed going dark in August and December. The Park and Recreation Commission has chosen the past few years to cancel their August and December meetings because of scheduling. Folks are out of town, you know, summer gets busy, it gets hard to get quorum. We don't have anything pressing on the planned for the August agenda. And then December, obviously, with the holidays coming up, you know, right between Thanksgiving and Christmas is also another time. So that it's difficult to get on people's calendar and tends to be a slower time of year programmatically. So we were wondering if this group had any interest in canceling the August and December meetings and kind of making that decision now. We could also wait until November to make a decision on the December meeting in case something urgent is coming up. We don't foresee that. But I think that was the discussion we wanted to bring to this group. Henry, did I miss anything?
No, that seems like the whole, yes.
Any comments?
I guess my only comment, and I haven't been here, I don't think I was on the board last August, but I guess my only comment would be, given with the library, is there anything like that comes about with the beginning of the school year that occurs in August around that time that the library board receives an update for? I get, you know, the holidays for sure. That makes a lot of sense, but I just don't know with whether, and then if there hasn't been anything, then I'll shut up. But I was just wondering about August and the school year.
Nothing pressing, we will report on summer reading, but it doesn't need to happen in August, the beginning of August.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. Since our meetings are the second Tuesday, that it does fall earlier, where the second Tuesday in September may actually even be a better time for the summer reading report.
Yeah, I would say this is our usual cadence, right, of August and December. My only thing is there anything going to the city council or anything for the new library?
You're
Would that there
jumping the
were.
gun on our next report, but
Yeah, we have info about that, so.
So if
it
there's
doesn't come
not,
to
I
us.
think it's fine, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. If there is, then I would obviously not want to miss that opportunity.
Yeah, unfortunately not, so, I mean,
Okay.
sorry, I don't mean to give it away. But,
we have more language
Yeah.
and explanation around it we'll
Yeah,
provide.
pretty much.
But yeah, the short answer is not.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I defer to the rest of the committee on this. I obviously, with my first meeting, I don't really have any perspective on what the agendas look like in any particular time of year or how busy people are. So I'm happy to entertain that. I'm good at this point.
Great. Yeah, and I was gonna say I haven't missed a meeting in the last year, but that next meeting date in August, I was going to be on vacation. So personally, I think it's great to, if we don't have any items that are pressing, which we have all heard from Alex and Jamie and your questions, yeah, I would definitely second that. And maybe we can just, in October, November, we can review whether there's anything pressing and whether we can skip December.
This is all just a plan by Adriana to keep her attendance record immaculate.
Absolutely. Couldn't have
then
worked better.
I think maybe we'd have a motion to cancel the August meeting.
Yeah. let's have a
Just the
motion.
August meeting or August and
It sounded
December?
like Adriana, you wanted to wait until we could revisit in December or in November, October. Was that kind of your proposal?
Yeah, just that work for everyone, just to revisit October, November, see how we feel about December. But for now, voting on August.
That sounds
anyone
good.
Motion?
I'll move to cancel the August meeting.
I can second that.
Thank you, Larry. Ginger, can you roll call, please?
Yes, trustee Undow,
Aye.
trustee Cortez,
Aye.
trustee Lentini, trustee Vedot,
Aye.
chair Duke Hughes.
Aye. Thank you, Ginger. And no public comment, right? Right,
No,
let's
no.
move on to item 6, other brief reports on any meetings, conferences, and or seminars attended by board members. Any comments from any board members who have attended any? No? Okay, then we can move on to item 7, other brief program updates or report on meetings, conferences, and or seminars attended by staff.
Yes, I'll run through the normal meetings that I go to, and then Catherine will update you on the new library project status. Sounds like a plan. There was a NorthNet meeting last month. NorthNet is our official state library consortium that runs from Marin County to the Oregon border over to Nevada and down to Sacramento. There's like 40 libraries in that group. The rest of NorthNet has a shared ebook collection, which we don't participate in. We have our own. The biggest part of the discussion was they were looking at their cost sharing formula, and in two ways. The way that we pay to be part of this consortium that doesn't really provide us much value, except for it funnels state money back to us. So there was also a cost distribution formula that would have possibly reduced the money we get from them by, 4/5. Luckily, everyone voted to keep the same formula, so we're still getting the amount of money we usually get, which is roughly around $10,000 a year. Also, would they vote? NorthNet voted to connect its ebook collection to the MarinNet Overdrive collection. So items that weren't on hold could be shared between the two, which is good. MarinNet met at the beginning of the month. And we also talked about cost sharing. For example, this has been a pet peeve of mine. Anyone that's been on the board for a while, we pay like double what Mill Valley and Bell Tib pay. And the county pays about $1 million for MarinNet. We pay around 300,000. Some of the more well-off libraries have the same size collection, but they pay half what we pay or less. And the smallest libraries pay significantly less. So it seems like it's not benefiting us from an economy of scale, and also the services provided if we were to do them independently and independently of the book sharing throughout the consortium would cost us significantly less. And I think that there's some movement towards having like an equity adjustment to even out what we all pay. But also we talked about reducing the costs of MarinNet, which are 3/4 staffing like many organizations. And if we went to a hosted catalog with support included, we could probably save on staffing. But it's always difficult to reduce staff, and if it happens organically, that would be awesome. The Friends of the Library met at the San Rafael Community Center, not the B Street, the San Rafael, before their recent lawn sale, which was an outstanding success. They recouped, I think, more than $5,000 in profits. The lawn sale was very well attended. It was a great thing. And then the foundation met on Zoom last week, and we told them what we're going to tell you next. And that concludes my remarks. Take it away, Catherine.
Thanks, Henry. So I get to have the unhappy news of kind of giving the update on where what happened with the city's kind of further investigation of the property transfer tax that Paul Cohen, I believe, presented about at the last meeting, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago. It's blurring together a little bit, but so I think just a brief synopsis. Back in February, the city did kind of the first statistically valid survey looking at kind of what voter sentiment would be on a potential property transfer tax. And this property transfer tax generally are a general tax that can be used for any city services, but the city typically explains what they're going to use it for. And what we were looking at generated enough funding to support the library as well as a number of other infrastructure needs. So the first poll back in February was pretty mixed. The city did not really get to the point that we felt that this was like, yeah, this is a good option, has a clear path of passage. So we went back and brought on a consultant that helped us kind of develop an informational campaign to kind of explain the need for this type of funding source and what the city would use it for, and kind of the infrastructure needs that the city has. And that was done over the past couple of months. And then in the end of June, we did another statistically valid survey to see if we had moved the needle or not on kind of voter sentiment around a potential property tax. When we met with the Godby Research, who did the survey last week. And what he shared with us was that while we likely did move the needle through kind of the informational campaign and through really honing the language in based on what we heard voters were interested in, that the world between the rising gas tax, or not gas tax, the rising gas prices, inflation, the war in Ukraine, just general feelings of economic instability move the needle back more. They said that they have not seen poll numbers like this across the region, across, they're polling for agencies across Northern California. They haven't seen numbers like this region-wide since 2008. They said that in the last 2 months, they've had to tell 10 different agencies that they didn't think their tax measures would be viable. And he said they haven't had to tell that many agencies no in the past 10 years. So basically their feedback to us was now is not the right time. It's potentially, they just didn't see a path forward for this to pass at this time. They are encouraging that 2024 things might look different, that with a general election, it's a different voter pool that turns out when it's a presidential election. And the city is also going to look at other options besides, there was some concerns that got brought up through our outreach around the property transfer tax that we need to think through a little more thoroughly. So the city is still committed to this and to finding funding, and to, the expansion of the library is still a top priority. But unfortunately, this 2022 does not seem like the year that we're going to be able to do that successfully. That said, as Henry mentioned, we did already successfully get $1 million in funding from the state that needs to be used by spring of 2024, I believe. And we've been in communication with the state just today, asking them about changing this. Originally, we had intended that money to be for the design of the larger project. And we talked to them about kind of repurposing that money for some other improvements at the existing Carnegie facility. So there's some just basic safety improvements that we need to make, code updates, accessibility, kind of electrical, plumbing, things that need to be done. But we're also looking at opportunities for just kind of improving the design and the flow of the existing building. Want to consider things like putting the staircase back on the front of the Carnegie building so that the entryway is actually upstairs and you enter the building into a big, beautiful, bright room, to kind of looking at some of the floor configurations and the shelving options to see if we can just create a better space with what we have in the meantime, while the city continues to kind of look at these larger funding options. So Henry, did I miss anything?
Yes. I think that spending the $1 million on updating the building and making it more pleasant and habitable, it's sort of the consolation prize for not getting the funding at the tax measure. But I think it will make a difference to the community, and it will be immediately apparent that something has changed. But it isn't the expanded space and much larger facility, but it will address some systemic problems with the building, with the addition of kind of just a more pleasant space to inhabit, a safer space, a more habitable space. Yeah.
And I do just want to emphasize that I think we're looking at 2024 as a hopefully more viable option, something we're going to be working towards to try and kind of build voter sentiment. I do have one other update that I think would be interesting to this group. That's good news. We also last week found out that the city has been recommended for funding for $4.2 million for a land and water conservation fund for pretty substantial improvements to Pickleweed Park. So the project would include adding a new basketball court, fitness equipment, new playground for youth under 5, kind of new gazebo and shade structure, but also convert the existing turf field into synthetic turf. Currently the field's closed for about 6 months out of the year, kind of for restoration of the turf. And that would, so that would like double the amount of time that the, or amount of capacity for that field. It would also add some lighting and some security cameras. And it's interesting timing, because if we are successful in getting the grant for the Pickleweed branch renovations, that those two could go hand in hand and really kind of be designed concurrently. And if we were to lose some recreation amenities such as the picnic area through the library expansion, that could be kind of offset during the larger park project. So it's an exciting news. It is, the way that process works is we've been recommended to the National Park Service. Now we go through a very extensive federal requirements process. It's called Section 106 and NEQA, to kind of make sure there's no historic or cultural disruptions that would be from this project. So that'll take about a year. So we're looking at more like a fall 2023 to early 2024 construction start on that project. So there's still time to kind of get all the other pieces, look at all the other pieces. So I know that was a lot.
Well, thank you so much. Are there any comments or questions? Sounds like you've been
Well,
busy.
I mean, I think it's,
Thanks. Oh, go ahead, Jamie.
I mean, it's obviously disappointing. But we'll, I guess, keep trying and appreciate the update.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. I don't know if there are any other comments, questions, or items. I think this is our last item, right?
And there are no public comments.
Okay, so with that, we can adjourn our meeting today, and we will be, our next meeting then will be not August 9, but September 13. Great. Have a great summer, everyone. See you after
Thanks.
Labor Day.
Thanks,
Thank you, Larry.
Adriana. Thanks, Larry.